Hi, good morning. Once again, thanks for joining us today. My name's Andy Hemming. I look after the support process for Textlocal. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll just be taking you into a bit of a deeper dive into the platform. We'll be showing you some basics in terms of how to load in some data and create contact groups, as well as sending some text and explaining what some key functionality looks like along the way, and also sharing some best practices in terms of usage. I know the majority of people on today's call went to the Great British Business Show. It was great to meet everybody. I hope you had a good show, and certainly, I hope I can make this next 20 minutes worthwhile in terms of giving you an education into SMS. For those that want to take part, we will be doing a live demonstration. So if you have your handsets ready at various points throughout the demonstration, I may ask you to send a text, or obviously I can send you one also. So we'll make a start by just giving you a brief introduction into Textlocal and our platform. So as a business, we've been going around about 10 years now. Over that period, we've established a client base in excess of 150,000, sending circa 30 to 40 million messages a month. Our client base will range from one-man bands right through to large corporates, and we're sending, as I say, around about 40 to 50 million messages a month through the system. The system itself is an online platform run through the website, and there's no contracts or tie-in periods. You service the platform with credits. Credits represent messages on a one-to-one basis, the idea being the more credits you buy, the cheaper the rate. They're the only associated costs with the platform. So there will be various functionality you see throughout the demonstration, and don't feel like this is going to add any weight in terms of cost, because they're completely free to use and purposely built to enable you to get more traction from any outbound activity. Naturally, once you've logged in, this is the first screen that you'll see, and this is just your home screen. It just covers off some very basic reporting stats over a 30-day window, such as what you might have sent or received. You'll navigate around the platform just using the header at the top. You just drop over a particular header. It gives you the drop down. You select a relevant field. So I'm going to start by showing you how to create a contact group. So you hover over contacts, you hit create group. You give the group a name. Now it can be anything you like. Just make it easily identifiable between others. Once you're giving the group a name, you come through to the next screen. This just highlights the first piece of functionality that I can share with you. So the ability to load data in that would allow you to send a mass broadcast, but when it's received by the individual, be as if you've just sent it to that person. So you'll note these headers here. Number, first name, and last name would be self-explanatory. And custom 1, 2, and 3, you can actually set the criteria for that. So this is a one-fit-all solution. So whether you are the one-man band or the large corporate, it makes no difference. You take control of your own custom field. So as an example, you might work in the insurance industry, for instance, and that might look like hi first name, your renewal price is custom 1. Likewise, if you were in medical practice, appointment reminders, that type of thing, it could be hi first name, your appointment is confirmed for custom 1. And now obviously when you're sending that information out, when it's received, that information is individual to that person. Now, clearly that's only as good as the information it's fed. So to get that information into the system, there's 3 ways, and you do that by hitting add, paste, upload. Best practice, especially if there's a lot of data, is to create an Excel spreadsheet. So CSV to be compatible with the platform, and if you are going down the route of personalizing messages, you would ultimately have a column per personalized field. So as an example, if that was number, first name, and custom 1, there'd be column ABC populated. Now, of course, just because the facility for personalized messages is there, it doesn't mean you have to use it. So you can just load in a load of numbers if you wish and send a very generic text. It's entirely up to yourselves and your own requirements. The next option you've got is the ability to paste the list in. Now this only works for numbers only, so if you were going down a personalization route, this feature isn't for you. But as it suggests, you can just copy and paste in the traditional format and add the numbers very quickly. And then finally, you've got the least favorable option, which is the single feature, and it's just a case of adding that data in one by one. Clearly, if there's a lot of data, you're not going to use that feature that often, but it's handy to add people to an existing group or create micro groups if needs be. So that's how you'd load your own data in. As an organization, we don't provide data, we don't sell data, so all of the data that you load into the system It's stored securely at Rackspace in London. We're trusted by various clients that have sensitive data. We do a lot of work with the NHS, the Ministry of Defence, and so on. So rest assured, that data is safe when it's loaded into the system. Now, naturally, as a business, you probably have aspirations to grow, to compete locally, nationally, possibly even internationally with like-minded businesses. Traditionally, how you've grown that database would be through purchasing data. Now, obviously, we've kind of just touched on that, spam or data that isn't necessarily opted in isn't necessarily the way forward, because the response rates from that are normally quite low. So it's very hard to get a return for investment. So there is a way that you can grow your database through text message. It's a slower process than buying data, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more fruitful in the long term. And that's through what we determine a keyword shortcode service. So I've actually set one up in preparation for today's webinar. So we've just used the word webinar. In a live scenario, you would pick a word that was referable to your business or your campaign on a short number. So in our case, it's 60777. So the concept now is that ultimately we need to attract people to text into that service, and we do that by one of two ways. So that's either an offers or promotions, competitions, and we'd advertise that in channels where our target audience would see that. So that would encompass things like social media, direct mail, newspaper, TV adverts, and so on. Just think the more people that see it, the more people are going to text in. And obviously, if the offer's good, the incentive is there. So that might be, text in for a 10% discount. Customer texts in, you hit them with an auto response saying, please quote this at point of sale to get the discount. And importantly, now once that person has texted in, they've opted into your outbound communications. And the idea is you can now reuse that at a later date, and these people should be more receptive to those messages. The second approach you might look at, you might be a business that traditionally can't offer discounts on products or services. So on that basis, you could still use a keyword to grow your database. You could perhaps use yours as more of an informative tool. So text in for more information about what we do. Text in to register for an event. Text in to register for our newsletter, etc. And again, we can hit them with auto responses that could have links and attachments on there that could portray more information, and so on. And again, the benefit now is that the number's been recorded. So if you go into the settings on the inbox, obviously we've talked about an auto response. This is where we would now prepare the message in terms of when the message is received, what we instantly send back. We do work with UK Tier 1 routes. So what that means in non-tech jargon is that we send messages, or we route messages through your main channels, so your EEs, your O2s, your Vodafones. So ultimately messages will be sent back within a 3 to 5 second window. So for those that want to take part, just so you can see this service working in a live scenario, you can open up your new message on your handset, type in the word, the key shortcode, which is 60777. That number again is 60777, and that's in the destination tab. And the message content, literally just write the word webinar. That's W-E-B-I-N-A-R. Just to recap, that's W-E-B-I-N-A-R. And I'll just give everybody 10 seconds or so just to catch up. And what you should find is once you text that service, that you get that bounce back text with some interactive links on there that will just showcase our platform in a bit more depth by way of YouTube video and brochure download facilities. Okay, so hopefully everybody that wanted to take part in that part of the demonstration has now done so. So naturally now you've loaded your data into the database, or you've built your data through this keyword concept. So naturally now you're going to want to send a text message. So we do that by going to send text message. Any group that you've created will automatically appear on the left-hand side, and by putting the dot inside the circle, that selects everybody in the group. If you don't want to send to everybody in the group, you can hit this expand option. It gives you a drop down. You can then just select the relevant numbers, and then refer to the right-hand side of the screen now, where I really start to show you some key functionality in the system, and really what we believe sets us apart from our competition. So going back to sort of functionalities that we get through our relationships with the networks is the ability to send a text from a name. So the benefits of that are if a customer can instantly relate to the source of the message, they're more likely to read the content. And then, of course, if the content's good and they're interested, the response rates should follow. Now, a bit of housekeeping on that. Whilst we can change numbers to alpha, alpha as destination doesn't exist. So in a live scenario, if I send a text from Textlocal, which I will do in a minute, if you try and respond to that message, you won't be able to because your handset is looking to send that to a destination. It's very easy to change your sender name. It's just a case of clicking down here. You can add sender. You can type in there what you like to 11 characters. If you're wondering why it's 11 characters, I get asked this question an awful lot. It's just due to international dialing recognition. If you think about a mobile number or a landline, if you include the dialing code, they're 11 digits, and they're 11 digits for a reason. And as I say, that's because of it's the UK's international dialing recognition. So whilst we can change numbers to alpha, we're still bound by that 11 character rule. But whatever you pop in there once adding a sender, as you can see from the various demos I've done in the past, it will keep a history of what you've used previously for easy selection. We are, of course, an SMS provider, so we do have two-way communication in place. So if you are on the demonstration today and you think, well, actually, I definitely need my customers to respond to my messages, in essence, you would just use the simple reply service. What that basically does is we have a bank of 15 numbers. It'll just select one of those at random and send that message from a traditional mobile number. When the response comes back in, it comes back into the receive section under the simple reply option. Now, if it were me, I think we look at our client base. We talked in the introduction about the 150,000. I think the majority of those do use the sender name on the basis that it's cheaper. It's actually only going to cost you 1 credit per message sent instead of the 1.5 messages per credit sent the simple reply would charge. Arguably, it's more effective for the reasons we've already discussed also. And following some sort of best practice I'm about to share with you, it's always advisable to put a call to action in the message. So actually, even with the sender name feature, you can still get audience participation, let's say, through clickable links, which I'm about to elaborate on now. So typically, you're now going to want to start building the text message out. Now, if you are going to use personalization, that wouldn't be very good because not everybody's name is Andy. So you would refer to the bottom right, insert merge fields, and this is now where you can, if you cast your mind back to the headers on how we create our contact group, we now click the relevant button, and that will do a hashtag lookup when we send the message and populate accordingly. To save time for today's demonstration, I've actually just created a quick template. Now, quick few stats on why you should be using mobile. I mean, typically now we work off a 98% open rate, which is unbelievable in comparison to email. 97% of messages are read in the first 5 seconds. I'm sure you can all relate to that on today's call. I know personally when my handset goes off, regardless of what I'm doing, I'll generally look to see who's texted me. So in theory, it should be a case of loading your data in, sending a text message, and waiting for the fruitful response. You normally work off 32% for text against 5% for email. I think if we look at the catalyst behind that, as I say, the majority of us will have a handset with us for at least 16 hours of the day. There's also no spam filter, so you're kind of guaranteeing what any message you send is going to get read. You can't guarantee that with email or direct mail. These are reasons why SMS is so prominent now and the most powerful communication tool that there is. Now, obviously, there are lots of stats and statistics there on why you should be using text, but of course, as a marketing manager, as a business owner, if you're spending X to get Y, and for whatever reason you're not getting Y, currently, in a basic text with no link or attachment, there's actually nothing that you can do to report on or to get message intelligence in terms of who might be interested in that text. So if the response rate is low, you're kind of stuck. Do you send a second text out again, which could be a waste of time, effort, or money because you're sending a second message to somebody that wasn't interested the first time round? Or do you make phone calls to these people? Again, it could be cold calling on that basis because, again, you're phoning people that aren't interested. So what you would almost do in every single text message is include some sort of clickable or interactable link. And the reason you would do that is generally if you're interested in a message, having read the content, and there's something there to interact with, you would click the link. In the links that we provide you with, there's reporting statistics that sit behind that post-send you'll be able to pull that will say, okay, I've sent 20 messages, of the 20 sent, 10 people click the link, here's their names and number. You can now track those back to see if they've made a purchase off their own back. And for those that don't, you can send a second text message perhaps with a further offer on it. That might be the catalyst to get them to purchase or make contact. Or if you saw fit, you could make phone calls to those people that clicked, they're now not cold, they're a little warmer, they're on an opted-in database anyway, and they've interacted through the message. Now, the different types of link, without going into too much detail, because I just want to keep the demo as basic as possible for today, are all represented in the bottom left-hand corner. You'd use each in different circumstances. I'll just run through them with you briefly now. So the first is you'll recognize the icon from an email. It works exactly the same. So the ability for you to attach a file, a document, an image, even video. The file size you can attach is 10 meg, so it's pretty chunky. It's just a case of clicking the attachment feature, uploading the document. We essentially host that on our server and convert it into a link. And when the recipient receives that message, they can click the link and open up whatever is attached. That feature also works as a great character save. You may or may not be aware that it's 160 characters per standard message. Our system will send more than 160 characters. It will go as one text, but of course it will be charged at 2, 3, 4 credits and so on. So in the real world, you will try and keep it to 160 to keep the cost down and make the service as effective as possible. The times you can't keep it to 160, just use the attachment tool, maybe attach a Word document and send somebody a basic message asking them to click a link for more details. Next option you've got is the web page feature. So not to be confused with creating a website, but it's creating a landing page that's specific to the outbound message. It has its own subsection here. It works very much like Paint on your desktop. They're very easy to create, and once you've created them and saved them in that section, you include them here. You've then got the most basic form of link you can use, which is the short link feature. This is just essentially just referencing your website homepage or a particular landing page that may be already created on your website. You've then got my favorite functionality, which is the survey tool. Okay, it does what it says on the tin. Like the web page feature, it has its own section here. Again, very easy to create and self-explanatory. However, what I like about it more is that it actually doubles up as a data capture service. So yes, you can build surveys, for customer feedback on products and services, but where I perhaps see you using it more is the ability to have audience participation, let's say. So click a link to register for an event, click a link to register interest in a product or a callback, book in for an appointment or whatever it may be. And I think that really works well. Certainly has in the past with other customers. I think you'll really find that useful. That data capture service. And then finally, you've got the ability to create unique tickets, one-time ticket for redemption. So that could be ticket for entry to an event. It could just be a simple ticket for a discount. When you, again, like the web page and the survey, it has its own section. When you create those, they create specific codes identifiable to an individual only. So it stops them and passing on to friends and family for redemption. You've also then got the loyalty version of that. So rather than one-time redemption, I guess it physically replaces the Costa Coffee card, let's say, in your wallet and sits on the passbook or pass wallet on your handset. It's scanned each time you make the purchase. At X time, it would send you out that free coffee or whatever it may be. You've got your character count down here. As I said, in the real world, you'd keep it to 160. Clearly, we're not so bothered today for the demonstration. You can manually schedule text messages, so you can do that just by ticking on or off and selecting the date, and that text would then be sent automatically. I loosely touched on when we created the contact group our ethos of working with like-minded businesses that want to text opted-in data. We talked about obviously not selling on or prospecting your data that's loading to the system for our own gains. And this kind of backs up that fact that we're very serious about opted-in marketing. So we do provide you with a free opt-out service. So what this essentially means is you're canvassing for something. People have the right not to receive those type of texts. So on that basis, please use our opt-out path. It's just tick on or tick off, and it allows the customer to text back and be removed from the database. From an admin perspective, we remove all of those customers from the database automatically. So if you had 100 records in there and 20 people opted out, the next time you log in, there'd only be 80 there. We don't delete the data, we store it under contacts and opt-outs, so you can review that at any point. You're now ready to send the text. So if you just hit send, you always get a confirmation of who it's going from and to. And for everybody that wanted to take part in the demonstration, by now you should have received the text message. Again, you'll notice it's as we were prepared from the sender name, and again the links within that message will be clickable. So post send now, you want to come to reports, all reports. So again, utilising our relationship with the networks, we are able to give you live delivery reports. So it's not actually Textlocal telling you we've delivered the message, it's actually reporting back to Textlocal to say they've received the signal from the handset to say that's been sent to a valid number. Unfortunately, I can't hit the check button and go through the report with you because of data protection. But within there, when you hit the check button, there's a breakdown there in terms of sent, delivered, undelivered, and invalid. I'll help you understand the difference between invalid and undelivered. We endeavour to send a text within 3 to 5 seconds. Now, obviously, that we're at the mercy of people having their phone switched on or having signal. If you've not got either of those two things, the network, dependent on the network, will try and send that for a maximum of 48 hours. Whilst during that 48-hour window, it'll just show as a pending message. After which point, if the message is still not gone, it will just go into an undelivered state. So an undelivered, you need to bear in mind, doesn't necessarily mean an invalid number. What other customers have done is, you'll notice the data is exportable to a CSV. So you could export that data, keep a record of it, maybe try 2 or 3 other times before deleting. And clearly an invalid number is self-explanatory. It's advisable to take those out of the database as soon as possible, because obviously the messages you're sending will never get into the intended destination and still taking credits from you. And then finally, before we wrap up, we talked about the importance of using clickable or trackable links. So if you go back to reports, you'll notice top right corner for short links. Obviously, I've used this account various times in the past, so I'll take one with the highest click-through. So you can see the link we've used, the click-through rates. If we now view the stats, we get a plotted line graph of who's clicked and when they clicked, so we can target people in sequential order. We then get a breakdown of device type and screen resolution. Now, I'm often asked why this is important. We've talked about the ability to create vouchers, tickets, web pages, possibly even data capture or surveys. And if you know or profile your database, the majority have an iPhone, let's say, you can start to be biased when creating those pages to suit that type of handset. And also, it's telling you if you're getting a high click-through rate, that actually your audience like interacting through links, so perhaps where possible use more and more links. If you now export that as a CSV, what I like to say is it essentially creates a ready-made sales sheet. You can now pass that to a sales team for follow-up, or you can load that data back in, call it something like clickers as a contact group, and send a second text message. Because ultimately on that report now, you'll get the numbers of the people that clicked, which is obviously the most important information for your follow-up. So that kind of covers off what I wanted to go through today. So obviously it was just a general overview of the system. Obviously I've shared some best practices along the way. I appreciate on today's call there are various representation from lots of different sectors. So if you would prefer a one-to-one session or maybe an even deeper dive than we've gone through today, feel free to contact me. As I say, I head up the support process. My name's Andy Hemming. My email address is andy, A-N-D-Y, .hemming, H-E-M for mother, I-N-G, at textlocal.com, and that's T-E-X-T local.com. Feel free to email me anytime. Alternatively, my direct dial is 01244 573 246. That number again, 01244 573 246. Excuse me. Just before we break, I've had a couple of questions that have come in. I'll endeavour to answer those, and then we'll wrap up. So we've had a bit of interest in the schedule feature. Obviously, I showed you from a manual perspective. Was a doctor's surgery on the call that was wondering whether we can automate that, and the answer to that is yes, we can. That's done through what's called an API. Now, an API stands for Application Program Interface, and in simple terms, that's us integrating our system with yours to enable an automatic process. So the receptionist, let's say, wouldn't even touch the front end that I've shown you over today's demonstration. She would put or he would put the information or the appointment information on the diary system you've always used, and then through that integration the day before, our system would go in, it would interrogate that diary system, and it would send out a text automatically. As I say, the system just kind of runs itself on that basis. There was also a lot of interest in terms of the links and the attachments, in terms of do they take up obviously characters, and can you use as many of those as you wish. The answer is yes, they do take up characters. and yes, you can use as many of those as you want within a message. So if you wanted to run multiple links, such as a data capture form in there as well as an attachment, mixing the survey tool with the attachment feature, absolutely possible. You can have as many links in there as you like, as I've said, and on that basis, as we've discussed, they're very effective to include within the message. And then there was a question around contact groups. Is there a limit to the amount of data that can go into there, and is there a limit to the amount of contact groups you can create? Technically, there's no limit in terms of the amount of groups you can have. You can have as many groups as you wish. That's infinite. There is technically a limit in terms of how many you can have in there. It's a data file, of course. I think that equates to about 70 to 80,000 records. So if you are a larger sender with more data than that, then obviously you just split the group into subgroups. You can send to multiple groups, so that's not a problem. There are a few other questions, etc., but I think I promised I'd try and keep it to 20-25 minutes. Thanks for joining us for today. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Obviously, you've got my contact details if you need to reach me for a more personal demonstration, and I hope to speak to everybody soon. Thanks a lot.